Hey everybody, it's Corey from thougsoldiers. So, I wanted to come on and talk about what's been happening over the past 48 hours and do some energy balancing and alignment for those that feel called to engage in this. So, basically the last 48 hours have been very interesting. A lot of different timelines that are collapsing right now that are linked to the rise of the distorted masculine and more of those lifetimes where with feminine oppression coming to the forefront as the feminine has been helping to raise the consciousness of humanity and other past lives where that exists, and the masculine took over and oppressed the feminine through different acts of brute force that have really led to the distortions that rise in the balance of the masculine and the feminine coming together. As we know, we chose to project down into a reality where we would basically have to deal with the masculine and the feminine, and how we've now had to start to break through the programming and release a lot of the stuff within that is keeping the bifurcation occurring and actually ruining the relationship dynamic, as two integral parts of this whole need to come together in order to really assist in this process collectively and the unification that we all seek amongst the collective conscious. And so we're finding this in the rise of spiritual partnerships and spiritual relationships, calling in our soul tribe, connecting to our oversouls and making those connections is requiring us to have to remove the program so they can be anchored fully into this realm, into this dimension. And a lot of us are meeting at a soul level, but there seems to be a hindrance in the creation of these various relationships and the unification here on Earth because of the programs and the distortions that exist through the past lives that we've lived, and the rise of the different agendas and as these different controls have worked for eons and eons. And so a lot of this right now is having to shift those out of our fields, especially if those codes are held really deep ingrained in our DNA and throughout our bloodline, and even through our lineages, our starseed lineages, and our past lives in other galaxies where these same things have occurred. And so what I found through some really deep reflection is if we are to look at our timeline in a linear format, so if we were to draw a straight line from one another, there may be moments on your journey throughout this lifetime where there's these little cross points and sections where, based on your soul imprint, you chose to relive certain things in order to help clear the karma of that. What it's doing is these secting, these points that come to a cross throughout our timeline are now resurfacing, at least for me over the last 48 hours, in order to clear out more of those timelines and to collapse those, especially since we are in the last quarter and we are hitting the 2020 trajectory, and we're finding a rise in a lot of sacred partnerships and a lot of sacred unions. Those that are in those sacred partnerships right now, in those sacred relationships, some of us are carrying the weight of that karma based on our bloodline, based on our ancestors, lineages, our natural soul imprint that we choose to project down with in order to gain this learning lesson from this experience. And so what it's doing is it's creating this kind of a lot of interesting fears and things coming to the surface between the masculine and feminine, especially those in partnerships. So there might be some strange fears coming through. If you're a feminine and you are evolved and awake, you may be getting visions of past lives, You may even be seeing visions of programming that is running within the masculine that you're with, or you might just be seeing out the timelines that are currently collapsing, which for us, for me and my partner that have been working through this, it's been a lot of the violence. So it's been a lot of the bloodshed, the torture, the silencing of the feminine vocally. Bifurcation process of heavy traumas in order to keep them from being whole, so the feminine won't have her power, and really peering into how this has been projected down into our reality. For instance, the thing that came through was the rise of ISIS in the United States of America, and the awareness of ISIS, the Islamic group, and interesting that it's helping us to put a negative connotation against the goddess Isis, and how that starts to play out. That's just one little example. So basically what's happening is, as the political structures are changing up and they're breaking, and we're noticing these polar shifts in the patriarch and in different organizations that have a masculine hierarchy. What we're noticing is this is being trickled down into the collective and is being seen and projected through our personal relationships, and being projected into our sacred partnerships as well. And the sacred partners are having to pick up this wound. If you're resonating with this, I know Samantha and I are currently picking up this wound to clear, because it is a code that is held within me and within my bloodline, with the patriarch and the fall of the unbalanced masculine, as we are finding the rise of the balanced feminine and the healed and empowered feminine. And it does scare those masculine codes. Those programs are being brought to the surface because a lot of it is held within our bones. When I think that I've existed on this planet for as long as I have, these codes are held within my body, and so they need to be released. So some may be painful. Some may come into repeating patterns, especially since we just had a Scorpio new moon. We are also working in Mercury retrograde as of today. We got Halloween today. It just seems like everything is set up ripe for this stuff to come to the surface. And so essentially what it's doing is it's helping to clear out those narratives and clear out those timelines, so we can really get back to balancing and harmonizing the feminine and masculine frequencies, not only within but without. So we can really unify as a consciousness and be able to see with the eyes of compassion and speak our light and our truth with compassion. And a lot of this is causing high heart activations and mergers for masculines, or for those that haven't fully merged their high heart and their heart. So we can be able to get this ultimate trifecta of the heart with the high heart and the heart working in unison, so we can speak with love, we can speak with light, we can speak with compassion, we can activate. Because it seems that the masculine still has a harsh residue with stuff, shame and guilt of things that they've done that they're projecting onto the feminine. And because of that, it's causing some discord between the frequencies of the masculine and the feminine in communication, with being able to open up the heart properly. Especially when we're looking at the wounded warrior masculine. We're looking at the masculine that has been projected down into this timeline in order to clean up a lot of the mess of the masculine and everything that has happened. What's going on is that wounding is still bringing what I would call a feral dog approach to the feminine and towards opening up, especially in the heart space. And so what this requires is a greater level of dedication towards showing compassion on both ends of the party. So we've got the masculine that needs to show compassion to the feminine that is, reliving these past life wounds and letting these things come to the surface, but also recognition that the masculine needs that same compassion, especially the wounded warrior that is still quote-unquote feral and still quote-unquote wild and still quote-unquote wounded from all the war programming that has been deeply embedded in his DNA that he is currently releasing. And so, what this really helps, what it really calls for us to do is to live in our hearts and to really put down the dukes, put down the weapons, and to cease fighting everything and everyone by surrendering to the fact that the change is occurring. And at a cellular level, as this stuff is starting to leave, we're going to notice a change in our day-to-day interactions and more of a unification at not only a collective level but a personal level. And it's needed. It's a part of the process. There are some of us that chose, I'm sorry, battery's dying. There are some of us that chose to project down into this reality during this time to clean up a lot of that masculine garbage, and especially if you're in a masculine embodiment. And it's very difficult. We're finding that there is no quote-unquote tangible results as of yet as to what is going on, but that is what this light working process is that it's not like we clear some things and then a paycheck shows up at the door, especially the programming of being the provider of the masculine, being the provider for the feminine. I'm finding that right now in my own personal life that I have to relinquish that program and recognize that we are both whole individuals on our own individual journeys and doing what we need to do on a day-to-day basis. And so if you're feeling unproductive or you're feeling you're not getting a lot done, recognize that there are things going on in higher realms than you could probably fully compute right now that haven't been fully projected or anchored into this reality yet, and the work that you're doing is great and has a high level of importance, and you might not see it tangibly right now in front of you, but give it some time and you will see the shift. If we look at the Ascension shift, we look back a few years ago with the rise of these Ascension waves, we would see a great deal of change right now. I talked to first wavers back that were alive during the 1980s that saw this, that called this process in. I forget exactly what it was called, and pretty sure I'm gonna have some first wavers that show up and talk about it. But they wanted this time to come, and it took 30 some odd years to finally see the arrival of this ascension process and to see what the global change and the global shift is, how it's happening at a grander scale and not necessarily the micro but the macro level. And so if you are in a masculine embodiment and you feel like you're not doing a lot right now, or you're just working through a lot of weird stuff, recognize that what you are doing for yourself, for your bloodline, for the collective, and in other realms, and as your truth speaks out into other galaxies, is creating a great change that you may not be able to see right now, but your role is important, and you will be greatly rewarded for your efforts. You might just not see it right now. So the idea is to really double down on the self-care and the learning as we are really energetically stepping up into a whole new realm, and we are really learning again in the new level of awareness that we're at, and to be okay and to recognize that you may not understand fully what's going on right now, but you'll be able to look back one day and get that insight. And that's what happened to me. The past 48 hours have been very strange, feeling very energetically off. So I went in today and did some alignments and some balancing, and I'm feeling a lot better. I got some channeled insight last night, and especially as a lot more of my gifts are coming online, I'm now hearing from my team and my guidance exactly what's going on. So in the moment I may not recognize it, but there's always a solution at the end. And I start to channel that insight, and I gain greater clarity and recognize that even those moments where things seem really messed up and screwed up and out of whack, it's actually perfect just the way this is. And that's just a part of this process, is that at the time it may seem extremely imperfect, it may seem very undesirable, it may seem like extremely lonely, that you're the only one going through it, but give it some time and you recognize always that the learning lesson is it's just perfect the way it is. And so really right now is the time to just take it slow and easy as you're collapsing these timelines, and to open up your heart if you are experiencing any discord between any feminine and masculine relationships, whether it be bosses, family, a significant other, however it works out for you. A lot of the masculines are working through this stuff and really feeling the pain of what the feminine had to go through these timelines, and really having to adjust and come to terms and make peace through forgiveness of self and forgiveness of everything that has occurred, in order to fully embody and harness the new communication and the new balance that is sought out between the masculine and the feminine. And so, for me, it's that I've been feeling a lot of shame and a lot of guilt for things that never really happened they didn't happen in this lifetime. But it's shame and guilt for what's going on, and because of that, I'm able to feel the pain of the feminine as they are working through this stuff, and feeling that pain is helping to transfigure the entire process and collapse those timelines, because that empathetic exchange of compassion helps me to see it from their eyes, and then in order to really understand why I'm breaking this programming and why these cycles are ending. Because not only did those circumstances create distortions for the feminines, but the masculine's actions created distortions for the masculine. So, and that's kind of that karmic, that karmic bounce back, is that we did a lot of nasty things to the feminine, but thus created a lot of our own distortions that we are still currently working out at this time, and distortions for the feminine and traumas for the feminine that they are working out. So a lot of this is just self-compassion and taking time for forgiveness of everyone involved, all parties, firing as much love and rainbow frequencies into it as possible in order to illuminate that truth, and to help out not only the collective, but to help out our relationships, and to help out our ancestors and our bloodlines from stopping those cycles from occurring. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and do a little energetic balance. So let me go ahead and I invite you to, if you wish, you can smudge with me. If you don't want to take part in the energetic practice, you don't have to. But this is just going to be a balancing session and an alignment session for anyone that's going through this, or just needs an energetic alignment, an energetic balance, a little connection. So I'm going to open up. So, let's go ahead and connect us to the highest point of the crystalline grid available. Aligning you with source, calling down 0-point energy from above. Put a crystalline healing chamber around you. Let's just let that sit there and balance your field and align you. I'm going to bring in a wave of rainbow light. To encompass your entire body. Let's just let this light wash through you. Bring balance. Calling in your team now to assist in the process. It's important that we practice these balancing techniques as much as possible and use these frequencies to our advantage, especially as we are upgrading in sensitivity and upgrading and up-leveling. I know for me, there's this pattern in my life of only practicing self-care when things get really bad. And it's just important to make sure we practice this on a day-to-day basis. Some golden waves of energy through your field. these things shift out. I'm just going to sit here and let this balance and finish up while I finish up talking. So, yeah, it's been an interesting past 48 hours. And the beautiful thing, though, is that this seems to be, since, we're in the last quarter of 2019 heading to 2020, it seems to be the perfect time for not only, the astrology and the energies, but the different timelines we need to collapse in order to really get to the next level of our mission. As a lot of us are being called into our various roles and purpose right now. And so, if you're finding that you're struggling to get things off the ground, whether it be your creative business or your creative endeavors, I've had to recognize recently that things are just perfect the way they are, because there's also a deeper level of healing and learning that's going on. So since we are all being guided in our own way, shape, or form to our various teachers and masters in order to learn, for me, I have a few masters that I learn from that visit me. We work in the astrals mainly and through dreamscape, and through various sources other than just on phone and via technology in other realms in order to learn and really to up level the mastery. And so a lot of stuff is happening in dreamscape, and a lot of remembrance right now, as a lot of the masculine powers are coming online now. And it's very difficult because the masculine for a very long time has used these powers to control and use these powers to suppress, and has harnessed these powers, especially harnessing the powers of the divine feminine through sexual acts, things of that nature, and through plugging into her by removing her power and using it for means of control that are really negative in connotation. And so now it's really having to find a humble approach towards having these powers, towards creating a better world. And because of that, there's a remembrance right now of all the codes and programs that are embedded within us and all the lifetimes that this has occurred in order for us to shift it out. So when the masculine does fully stand in his power alongside the feminine, they can work in union and in balance and in harmony. And those two very powerful energetic structures can come together to create a gigantic pillar to help, ascend Gaia to its best version. And that's why these codes and these programs are coming out right now. We're going to be able to hold more light. There's going to be a lot more disclosure of these things occurring. And we're going to start to see the shifts subtly happen. And we're going to notice it get projected out relatively quickly as the timelines are speeding up, as we are leaping into the 2020 timeline and the creation of New Earth. And as we know, these frequencies are all here right now. These timelines are all active. A lot of it is just having to remove the programming and belief systems to get in energetic alignment with those timelines so we can just hop in full time. And so that's what this is doing, is it's really a deeper level of purging and clearing that is bringing up deeper codes and deeper wounds. But what's really beautiful about this restructuring process is as we are removing these puzzle pieces and we throw them on the ground, what we can do is we can start to sift through and sort through the puzzle pieces in order to assemble our divine blueprint and to take these programs and codes and to use them for good as the restructuring process is occurring and we are collapsing these narratives. And the beautiful thing is we won't see these timelines existing anymore. They will be long gone. They will be corrected, and we will be able to live in a more harmonious union in not only our sacred partnerships and our sacred relationships, but in our day-to-day interactions amongst the feminine and the masculine as two parties working alongside one another, joining in a harmonious union with no power struggles, no need to manipulate, no need to control, and really breaking down those paradigms and offering the support that the feminine needs in order to grow and to expand and to stand in her power firmly, but also the love and compassion that the masculine needs, especially the wounded healer masculine, that is still sifting through his programs and sifting through his different lifetimes and sifting through his present wounds as they're coming to the surface and they're healing. And this is where we will find a more greater level of understanding of the roles of the characters in our lives, and the roles that they served based on our energetic imprint and what they taught us, in order to apply that wisdom fully, anchor it into the I am presence, so we can stop repeating those cycles. So if you're noticing a lot of these things coming up, especially with Mercury retrograde or past relationships coming up, you know, it may not just be coming back around because it's a gift. It could be, but it could be coming around because you're meant to see that wisdom in a higher light. You're meant to really look at the application of the wisdom and how it's affected your life in today, and the evolution of you, the evolution of your soul's journey as a direct result of that interaction, however long or short it was. That helped to create the character, the avatar that is you now, as you are really owning and discovering your natural imprint, and what it is, and what the role is in the greater mission of raising the frequency of Gaia. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect now. We're done with that alignment. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around for that. Much love and respect to everybody out in the Webiverse. If you haven't clicked subscribe, all links are in the subscription box. Some of the pages are offline right now just because I haven't been able to afford certain subscriptions and certain services. All that is coming back around as the pieces are falling back in order perfectly and beautifully, just the way that they need to be. So like my website's down, and I think my webinars are down too, but it's okay. It's all going to come back online, all in its own time, all in the divine timing. So once again, much love and respect to everybody out in the Webiverse, and I will see you on the other side. Namaste.